If you are an older man who still masturbates, hear this clearly. There is a quiet factor almost no one mentions that can make erections softer, sensation duller, and confidence slip. The issue is not that you do it. The issue is how you do it. I am Dr. Isabella Marlowe. For more than 30 years I have helped men past 60 reclaim energy, intimacy, and strength. What I am about to cover is one of the most common yet least understood patterns I see in clinic week after week. Many men frame masturbation as either good or bad, a simple yes or no. The reality is more nuanced and far more important. Self-stimulation can support health. Done the wrong way, it can slowly erode performance, unsettle hormones, reduce circulation, and even weaken your capacity for connection. In this session, I will walk you through 10 hidden risks of masturbation after 60 that most clinicians never explain, then show you how to turn a private habit into a practice that protects the prostate, improves blood flow, supports testosterone, and deepens intimacy. Before we finish, I will also teach a natural 7-second technique that helps restore firmness and drive safely, effectively, and without medication. Your health and your confidence deserve straight talk, so let us begin. If this resonates, tap subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss practical guidance made for men in their 60s and beyond. If this speaks to you, comment with a 1. If it does not, comment with a 0. Your feedback helps me create what truly serves you. Risk number 1. Masking erectile. He is in his late 60s, looks fit, lifts light weights a few times a week, and has shared a long marriage. When we sat down together, he finally admitted, "I can get hard on my own, but with my wife it just does not happen, so I have stopped trying." That confession matters, not because he is broken, but because his body is sending a signal he did not recognize. The penis often behaves like an early warning gauge for your cardiovascular and metabolic health. When blood vessels lose elasticity, when endothelial function falters, when blood sugar control slips, or when hormones drift downward, one of the first places the change appears is in partner sex. Solo arousal is usually easier. It asks less of attention, emotion, and performance under pressure, so it can work even while deeper systems are struggling. That is why many men assume everything is fine. They can still manage in private. The truth is that private success can hide the first stage of erectile dysfunction, which in turn may indicate early heart disease, diabetes, or declining testosterone, all of which are far more manageable when discovered promptly. I would rather see a man when the pattern is just emerging than after a crisis has forced the issue. With timely evaluation, we can address circulation, sleep, weight, medications that interfere with function, and hormone balance. Many men regain firmness and stamina with targeted lifestyle changes and measured medical support, often without heavy prescriptions or procedures. There is no shame in asking for help. The real risk is waiting and pretending that a workaround equals wellness. Pay attention to the specifics. Are erections less firm than they used to be? Do they fade faster? Do they fail with a partner yet persist when you are alone? If the answer to any of these is yes, make an appointment with a clinician who looks at the whole picture. That means blood pressure, lipids, glucose, thyroid, testosterone, pelvic floor function, mood, and the side effects of current medicines. You deserve a full life, not a narrow strategy that avoids disappointment while the root problem grows. Now that we have looked at blood flow, hormones, and overall health, there is another reason erections can falter that has nothing to do with blocked arteries or low testosterone. Sometimes the nervous system has been trained to respond to one script only. That quiet conditioning is called desensitization, and it is where we go next. Risk number 2. Desensitization. Caleb is 65, semi-retired from running a small printing shop. He keeps active, eats well, and by most measures he is healthy. Yet he sat across from me looking discouraged. "I can finish on my own," he said, "but with my partner it feels distant." I do not know what changed. As we talked, a pattern emerged. For years he had used the exact same routine in private. Same hand position, same tempo, same pressure, the same visual setup. His body had learned one script so thoroughly that any deviation felt flat. This is not a moral problem or proof that your desire is gone. It is neurobiology. The nervous system is built to learn through repetition. When stimulation arrives in the same way over and over, the brain links pleasure to that single sequence. Like a path through grass that grows clearer each time you walk it, other routes become less traveled and less responsive. In sexual terms, this shows up as needing stronger or more specific stimulation to feel much at all, struggling to build arousal with a partner, or being unable to climax unless the solo scenario is recreated with precision. The encouraging part is that what has been learned can be unlearned. Plasticity works both ways. Start by changing how you touch yourself. Vary speed, pressure, and angle. Switch hands. Explore different positions so that different muscles and nerves engage. Add pauses where you let arousal rise and settle rather than racing straight to release. Bring attention to breath and to sensations in the pelvis, abdomen, and chest, not only the genitals. Use lubricant to reduce friction when experimenting, then notice subtler textures that get drowned out at high speed. Shift what your mind relies on. If the same visual content is part of the rut, cut it back. Try eyes closed for a time and feed the experience with memory, imagination, scent, and sound. Focus on what the body actually feels instead of what the mind thinks it should feel. If you have a partner, treat a few sessions as practice rather than performance. Trade guided touch. Describe what feels warm, what feels too much, and what feels promising. Celebrate small returns of sensitivity instead of measuring success only by climax. Give this process patience. You did not carve the old groove in a week, so do not demand that it vanish in a week. Most men notice the first hints of change when they stop insisting on the old script and let curiosity lead. The nervous system is not broken. It is overtrained in one direction. With permission and time, it learns to respond to a wider range again. When repetition narrows your body's responses, the next step often happens in the mind. To keep sensations high inside a familiar routine, many men lean on highly edited, high-intensity media. The reward system adapts to those spikes of novelty and speed, then begins to expect them. Real touch arrives slower. Real faces are not framed for impact. Real sounds are quiet compared with a screen turned up to 11. Little by little, ordinary closeness starts to feel muted, not because desire is gone, but because the reference point has shifted. That shift is not a moral failure. It is the brain doing what it always does, calibrating to the inputs it receives most. The result, however, is distance from the very moments that used to move you, the scent of a partner's skin, the rhythm of shared breathing, the warmth of being held. This is the next risk to understand: disconnection from reality, where exaggerated stimulation trains the nervous system to overlook the depth that only real life can offer. Let us open that door and see how to bring responsiveness back to the world in front of you. Risk number 3. Disconnection from reality. Jasper is 72, a retired surveyor who still hikes the coastal trail on cool mornings. He told me he was not short on desire, yet real life had gone quiet. He could spend an hour with vivid clips and feel switched on, then sit beside a kind woman at a coffee shop and feel nothing but politeness. The puzzle was not in his testosterone. It was in calibration. The reward system had adapted to fast edits, amplified angles, and constant novelty, so ordinary human pace felt muted by comparison. The brain is built to learn from what it sees most. If the bulk of stimulation is curated and extreme, the mind begins to expect that level by default. Real touch arrives slowly. Real scent is subtle. Real voices come with pauses and small stumbles. None of this is a flaw. It is how closeness works outside a screen. When expectation rises far above what reality can offer, the result is a dulling of presence. You may find yourself comparing partners to images that were never real to begin with. You may notice boredom in moments that once made you ache in a good way. This is reversible. Begin with a reset. Step back from explicit media for a while. Give your nervous system room to come down from the peaks and notice smaller signals again. Replace some of that time with inputs that support embodied attention. Read a page and sit with a sentence that moves you. Walk without headphones and listen for breath and footfall. When arousal stirs, try eyes closed, let memory and imagination carry the scene rather than imported images. If you are with a partner, trade slower touch and name the details that land: warmth along the forearm, a change in breathing, the weight of a hand on the hip. As novelty from screens recedes, novelty within a real moment returns. Expect a stretch of flatness early on. The brain is adjusting its set point. Stay with the process. Sensitivity almost always rises as the system rebalances. You are not too old to feel deeply again. You are giving your body the chance to respond to the world in front of you, the only world that can hold you back. Now for the bridge to our next topic. When reality feels dull, many men try to fill the gap with more frequent release, not for pleasure itself, but to quiet restlessness, loneliness, or worry. That is how a private habit slides from support into the only outlet. This emotional shortcut is the risk we address next, using it as your only emotional outlet. Risk number 4. Using it as your only emotional outlet. Noah is 69, a former train dispatcher who still wakes up before sunrise out of habit. He told me that on heavy days he would take the quickest path to quiet his chest. Not for desire, but for relief. It worked for a little while. The restlessness dropped, his shoulders softened, and the room felt calmer. Then the same feelings crept back and he reached for the same lever again. What Noah discovered is common. Release can briefly lower stress hormones and mix in a small dose of calming chemistry. Dopamine, oxytocin, and prolactin create a short window that feels safe and settled. There is nothing wrong with needing comfort. The trouble begins when that single act carries the whole load of loneliness, worry, grief, or boredom. Over time, the habit shifts from support to avoidance. Invitations are turned down. Calls go to voicemail. The guitar in the corner gathers dust. Life narrows to a private loop that promises control but slowly drains color from the rest of the day. This is not a character flaw. It is an understandable response to hard feelings. The way forward is to widen your tools so that one behavior does not carry every emotion. Start small and concrete. 10 minutes of morning light outside, even on a cloudy day. A slow walk after dinner with attention on breath and footfall. Basic breath work, 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out for 5 minutes, to settle the nervous system. Reach out to one person this week and set a time to talk in person. Choose one absorbing task for your hands: sanding a piece of wood, tending a plant, making broth from scratch, anything that gives you the satisfaction of progress. If grief, anxiety, or long-standing sadness is part of the picture, consider a counselor or a peer group where men speak plainly. None of this requires you to stop self-pleasure. The goal is range, not prohibition. Keep it as one option among many, used by choice rather than compulsion. A practical check is to ask yourself, what am I feeling before I reach for this? If the answer is mostly lonely, overwhelmed, or empty, try one alternate action first for 10 minutes. If you still want release afterward, proceed with awareness rather than urgency. As your toolkit grows, something important happens. The habit loses its job as the only pressure valve. Energy returns for the parts of life that actually nourish connection and purpose. That is the bridge to our next risk. When one private loop takes over, reaching out becomes rare, and days pass without touch, laughter, or eye contact. That quiet drift into distance is social isolation, which we will unpack next. Risk number 5. Social isolation. Arthur is 70, a retired bus mechanic who keeps his tools in perfect order. His days are predictable. Oatmeal, a crossword, a tidy walk around the block, then long stretches of quiet. When the ache of being alone shows up, he reaches for the quickest way to feel something and moves on. Week by week, that loop has replaced reaching out, and the calendar has fewer names on it than it used to. This is not a moral issue. It is human biology. Touch, shared laughter, and simple eye contact act like medicine for the nervous system. They keep emotional circuits engaged, help testosterone patterns stay healthier, and protect a sense of being valued that you cannot build in a vacuum. When a solitary habit becomes the main source of comfort, the world shrinks. There are fewer reasons to leave the house, fewer sparks of humor, fewer moments of warmth that remind you that you are still a man with gifts to offer. Treat this as a signal, not a verdict. Start smaller than your pride suggests. Call one person today and ask one real question that invites a story. Put a recurring note on your phone to meet someone once a week. Join something low stakes and nearby, a walking group, a beginner Tai Chi class, a community garden hour, a library book circle. Practice brief, appropriate touch where it belongs, a 2-count handshake, a light shoulder squeeze with permission, an offered arm on a curb. If dating feels far off, begin with visibility. Sit where people are, exchange a few words with the barista, carry a bag for a neighbor, volunteer at a place that relies on your steady presence. Intimacy is more than sex. It is the daily exchange of attention and care that says you belong. As these small bridges return, the private workaround loses its job as your only comfort. Energy comes back for the parts of life that actually feed purpose and connection. You do not need a sweeping makeover. You need a handful of repeatable gestures that keep you in the current of other people. Loneliness is not the only cost of going it alone. There is a physical toll hiding in the routine. Those quiet hours often unfold in a chair, hips flexed and shoulders rounded. Hold that position long enough and the pudendal nerve carries too much pressure, sensation dulls, and pleasure fades even when desire remains. To protect feeling as well as connection, we need to look at position and support. That brings us to risk 6, nerve compression from poor posture. Ramon is 71, a retired music teacher who spends long afternoons in his favorite recliner with a paperback balanced on his chest. He came in describing a faint buzzing around the base of his penis and a patchy numbness that had crept in over 6 months. Blood work looked fine. Circulation tests were acceptable for his age. The problem was mechanical, not hormonal or vascular. His daily posture was loading the wrong places. Here is what many men miss. Position shapes sensation. Long stretches seated on a hard edge, slumped forward at a desk, or half-perched in a recliner put pressure along the pathway of the pudendal nerve. That nerve carries sensation from the penis, perineum, and much of the pelvic floor. When it is compressed, the first signs are subtle. A little less response to touch. A tingling that feels like a low battery. Sometimes a dull ache after a session that lingers into the evening. Left unaddressed, the pattern can harden into chronic irritation that is slower to reverse. Correction starts with support and alignment. Trade the hard chair or narrow stool for a surface that spreads weight across the sit bones. Prefer a reclined or lying position where the spine is supported and the pelvis can settle. Place a small pillow under the knees to ease the lower back and open the pelvic angle. Keep the head and shoulders from craning forward. If you use a screen, bring it to eye level instead of curling down to meet it. Build movement into your day so that nerves and soft tissues are not trapped in one shape. Every 30 to 45 minutes, stand, take a few steps, roll the hips, and tilt the pelvis forward and back. Gentle stretches for hip flexors and adductors take pressure off the pelvic outlet. If cycling is part of your routine, make sure the saddle fits and consider a cutout design that reduces perineal pressure. None of this is indulgence. Comfort is protection. When you give nerves room to breathe, sensitivity has room to return. Ramon adjusted his setup, swapped the chair, added a knee pillow, and paired reading time with short walking breaks. Within weeks, the buzz faded and sensation felt clearer. Small ergonomic changes delivered results that no pill could have matched for his situation. Position is only one side of the equation. The surface of the skin meets friction every time, and technique can either protect or irritate it. Even with perfect posture, dry or hurried contact can leave tiny tears that inflame tissue and dull sensation. That is our next topic. Risk number 7. Skin microlesions. Harvey is 73, a retired cartographer with a careful, steady way of doing things. He came in embarrassed about a faint sting after he finished, a redness that took hours to settle, and a sense that sensitivity was slipping. He worried something was wrong with his nerves or hormones. The truth was simpler. His technique had not changed since his 40s, but his skin had. With age, the penile skin becomes thinner, less elastic, and slower to repair. Decades of friction add up. A tight grip, dry contact, or hurried motion can create tiny tears that you rarely see but you feel later as soreness, a mild burn, or a tender spot that makes you wince in the shower. Repeated micro-injury leads to inflammation, which can blunt sensation over time, and the warm, moist environment can invite bacterial or fungal irritation that lingers. The fix is practical and kind. Ease the pressure. If you notice heat or drag, you are already past the line. Use a quality water-based lubricant. Skip petroleum jelly and saliva, both raise the risk of irritation and infection. Slow the pace and vary your touch so the same patch of skin is not taking all the load. Afterward, rinse with lukewarm water, pat dry, and give the area air. If you see persistent redness or cracking, take a break and let tissue mend before resuming. Pain is not proof of vigor. It is feedback. You are not weaker for being gentle. You are wiser. This stage of life is not about less pleasure. It is about better pleasure, the kind that preserves sensitivity for tomorrow instead of spending it all today. Friction you can feel is only one kind of strain. There is another that builds deeper, a dull heaviness behind the pubic bone when frequency outruns recovery. That pattern has a name, pelvic congestion, and it is our next topic in Risk 8. Lionel is 68, a retired civil engineer who now spends most afternoons repairing watches in his workshop. Recently, he began noticing a dull heaviness just above his pubic bone after several days of repeated release. It was not sharp pain, but a nagging fullness that followed him into the evening, sometimes spreading into the testicles or lower back. His scans were clear, his prostate normal, and his blood work stable. What he was feeling was not disease but congestion, a buildup of blood and tension in the pelvic vessels that had not been given time to drain. This happens because each episode of arousal draws blood into the pelvic tissues, but constant repetition leaves little room for recovery. The veins that should carry blood away remain engorged, and the muscles of the pelvic floor grow tight instead of relaxed. The body sends signals, heaviness, aching, restlessness while sitting, or even the sense of needing to urinate more often though the bladder is not full. The solution is not to stop, but to balance. Many men find that spacing their sessions by a day or two, then checking how their body feels, restores comfort. Light aerobic movement like walking or swimming helps the veins empty. Stretching the hips, thighs, and lower back can ease the muscles that trap circulation. Breathing that expands the belly on the inhale and softens it on the exhale relaxes the pelvic floor. A warm shower or soak draws blood flow back to the surface and relieves pressure. Over time, these small adjustments restore vitality instead of draining it. Lionel tried keeping a simple log of timing, noting when the heaviness showed up. Within weeks, by giving his body rest and adding daily walks, the weight behind his pubic bone disappeared. Pleasure felt cleaner and recovery faster. Pelvic congestion teaches us that even something natural can strain the body if rhythm is lost. For men who are still considering fatherhood, or who want to protect every measure of their reproductive health, the next question naturally follows. If the pelvis can grow congested, what about the quality of semen itself? That brings us to Risk 9, the potential impact on semen quality. Victor is 61, recently remarried, and quietly hopeful. He and his wife have been trying for a baby for half a year. His labs were steady, blood pressure fine, no major red flags. When I asked about timing, he smiled and said he ejaculates every day, sometimes more, because he figured more would raise the odds. That belief is common, but biology plays by other rules. Frequent ejaculation is not harmful for most men, yet it can temporarily lower the concentration of sperm in each sample and may reduce motility, especially when natural production has slowed with age. Semen quality changes with rhythm. The body needs a short window to replenish. For couples actively trying to conceive, an abstinence period of about 2 to 5 days before the planned attempt often produces a sample with higher concentration and better movement. This is not a moral directive. It is a practical way to give the testicles time to build a stronger batch. Outside a conception window, choose the frequency that keeps your body comfortable. Inside a conception window, treat timing like showing up rested for an important performance. Victor and his wife shifted their plan. They tracked the fertile window, aimed intercourse for those days, and Victor kept 2 to 3 days between ejaculations before the target. They also supported the basics that matter for semen quality at any age: regular sleep, moderate exercise, steady hydration, and limiting excess heat on the groin from very hot baths or prolonged laptop use on the lap. Within a few cycles, they felt more confident that every attempt counted. If you have been trying for 6 to 12 months without success, consider a clinician visit for both partners. Simple tests can clarify whether timing is the main issue or if there is something else to address. Many older men do become fathers, and many do so with nothing more than attention to rhythm and general health. There is one more layer to name before we finish this chapter. Conversations about fertility and sexual function often stir old beliefs. Some men carry a heavy story about what it means to touch themselves, to want sex at this age, or to struggle with performance. That quiet burden can raise background stress and dim pleasure even when the body is capable. To move forward with more ease, we need to look at the emotional weight that follows some men out of the past. That brings us to risk 10, guilt or shame. Milton is 72, a retired choir director who still tunes his old piano every Sunday afternoon. When we spoke about his intimate life, he lowered his eyes and said that after he touches himself he feels small, as if he has failed a promise he made long ago. No one scolded him recently. The voice lives inside. For many men raised with strict messages about sex, masturbation was framed as dirty or weak. Those stories do not simply fade with time. They settle into the nervous system and shape how the body responds. Chronic shame is not only a feeling. It is a form of stress that keeps cortisol elevated, tightens the chest, and blunts the brain's capacity to register pleasure. It erodes confidence, makes closeness harder to accept, and turns a simple act of self-care into a cycle of relief followed by self-punishment. The result is less desire to reach out, less ease with a partner, and a shrinking sense of worth. Healing begins with a different frame. Caring for your body can be an act of respect, not a failure of character. If old beliefs feel heavy, speak with a therapist who is comfortable with older adults and sexual health, or join a group where men talk about intimacy without judgment. If professional support is not available, start a private practice of reframing. After a session, write 2 short lines. One about what felt safe and kind. One expressing gratitude for what your body can still do. Replace harsh labels with accurate language. Instead of "I did something wrong," try "I tended to a human need with care." Give yourself permission to adapt the habit so it aligns with your values. Choose gentler technique. Bring in intention rather than urgency. Treat the experience as part of overall wellness alongside walking, stretching, and good sleep. You are not broken. You are not unclean. You are a person with needs, tenderness, and the right to comfort and connection. When shame loosens, the body often responds. Pleasure becomes easier to feel. Touch with a partner carries less fear and more presence. Confidence returns in quiet ways. You meet your own eyes in the mirror, you pick up the phone, you let yourself be seen again. Now we are ready to close by gathering what you have learned and offering a simple daily practice to put it into motion. In the conclusion, we will connect the 10 risks back to one idea, using intention and small adjustments to protect sensation, health, and intimacy, and we will finish with a 7-second routine that helps many men feel more responsive within days. Now you have seen that masturbation after 60 is not simply good or bad. It is a tool. The outcome depends on how you use it. We have walked through 10 quiet risks that can chip away at sensitivity, blood flow, hormones, mood, and connection if they go unrecognized. These points are not here to frighten you. They are here to wake you up. With intention, care, and small adjustments, the same private habit can protect your prostate, support circulation, steady testosterone, and deepen intimacy. Keep the essentials in view. Treat changes in firmness with a partner as health data and get checked early. Vary technique to retrain sensitivity. Step back from high-intensity media so real moments can matter again. Build an emotional toolkit so release is one option, not the only one. Rebuild human contact in small steps. Protect nerves with better posture and regular movement. Guard the skin with lubricant and gentleness. Match frequency to what your body can happily recover from. If you are trying to conceive, use timing that favors semen quality. If old shame lingers, replace judgment with respect. Here is the 7-second daily practice. Do it once or twice a day. Sit or lie comfortably. Inhale and let the belly and pelvic floor soften. As you exhale, lightly contract the pelvic floor, as if stopping urine, for 1 second, then release fully. Breathe normally for a moment. Repeat for 5 to 7 breaths. This is not a brute force exercise. It is a gentle wake-up for awareness and blood flow. Many men feel more responsive within days, especially when they pair it with walking and adequate sleep. Your age does not cancel desire or capacity. It invites skill. With a few steady changes, the next chapter of your intimate life can be stronger, kinder, and more connected than the one before. If this spoke to you, say